A little bit of controversy, perhaps a little bit of drama. Something was said by our neighbors in the US of A that kind of is making us go, so let's debate it. This week on CBS Sports Morning Footy podcast, former US international Charlie Davies called Jesse Marsch's decision to coach Canada high risk. Quotations. Those are an exact quote. And he actually said that if Marsch wants to manage in Europe again, he should have actually thought twice about taking the Canadian job. And this is what he said, quote, if he fails, he has to come back to MLS. That's what Davey said. So of course, here in Canada, there's a lot of people who are really excited about this. It's a name, it's a guy who as a player was a winner, as a coach did things as well in MLS, and then has all the experience in Europe between Germany, England as well. So sometimes, and I get it, we can be in our own little bubble. So based on what Charlie Davies said, he's kind of forcing us to think here, Wheels. So do you think that for Jesse Marsch, taking the Canada Soccer head coaching job for the men's team was actually high risk?
No, I don't. I don't think that there's anything wrong with going back to MLS either for any manager, the trajectory that the league is going. Some very good managers find themselves employed within Major League Soccer right now. I personally thought that Jesse Marsch was going to stay in club football, stay in Europe. He did reportedly have other offers that he could have taken there, but obviously no offers that are better than this one. Hosting or managing in a home World Cup, that's special. Like, this is once in a lifetime opportunity. And I understand that it's not his native United States, it's Canada. Isn't that such like an American thing to say, though? He's going to little old Canada to manage them, and obviously it'll look bad if he doesn't achieve. Obviously he sees something here in this Canadian side, and perhaps some onlookers south of the border haven't really truly been paying attention to what's going on up here in terms of the talent, in terms of the players that we have. And perhaps that Jesse Marsch thinks that there's something more to build off of the foundation that was left by the previous regime and the previous manager. So he's relatively young for his managerial cycle as well. Like, Jesse Marsch is 50 years old, managing a World Cup, just a 2-year commitment with a team that you think that there's untapped potential in managing, and not just a World Cup. You're not playing qualifying games. You're not grinding it out there. You're going to be playing some big games between now and then, and really a chance to put your flag in the ground and do something special. Quite clearly, going from the Premier League, going to manage the Canadian men's national team, it might not be like for like, but still clearly there weren't people clamoring, knocking down his door to hire him. Just look at his most recent stops, his 2 most recent stops. He had all kinds of success with Red Bull Salzburg, but 7 wins from 20 as interim manager of Red Bull Leipzig, and then 11 wins out of 37 with Leeds United in what was a difficult scenario there. So this might be a chance for him to polish up. He's going to get all kinds of media attention and play. He already has, because he's a big deal, not only in the United States and Canada, but Germany, England, and elsewhere. He's a character. He's a persona. So I think he's going to be in the spotlight no matter what. So I just don't think that this is a risky proposition whatsoever.
How you feeling about it, Ollie?
I actually agree with him. I think it is high risk. For Jesse Marsch, I don't think it really is about Canada. And I think you could say this just about the jump into international football in general. And you could say it about taking the job with any non-top 20 nation. Look, Jesse Marsch coming out of Leeds, even though it didn't end well there, was still very close to taking the Leicester City job. He's spoken about it himself. That was widely reported at the time. And Southampton as well. These are 2 teams. Leicester have just been promoted back to the Premier League, won the championship. Their expectation is to be in the Premier League. Southampton, same thing. They're playing in the playoffs right now to try to get back to the Premier League. I think if you don't make a splash with Canada, if it's a group stage exit at the 2026 World Cup for Canada, which we can't take for granted is a possibility, you're not getting the next job like Leicester or Southampton, right? And I think that's what Charlie Davies was getting at. No, of course, there's nothing wrong with coaching in MLS, but this is a guy who's come out of the biggest league in the world and probably has had opportunities to go back to that level or at least close to it with a top-end championship team. So I think Canada in that sense is a big risk for him. There are also great reasons to take that risk, right? Because there is big rewards potential as well. You're going to get the chance to coach Canada at the Copa America, at a home World Cup, playing against big nations. And if you can make that splash and if you can make an impact playing that high-paced, high-intensity football that Jesse Marsch loves, then you're going to have some really good offers on the back of that as well. So I'm not saying that it's all downside. There's plenty of upside there, but I do think there is big personal risk in terms of his stature and the direction of his career as a manager.
Jordo, it's up to you to break the tie.
I see where Ollie's going with this, but I can't look at Jesse Marsch and the situation and think that it's high risk. I think in the football world, if you look at managers, maybe you get a year and a half with a club. If you're lucky, that's like the average. Or if you're not winning and playing a progressive style and have the fans and the club execs on your side, then your sweet little Heine is out the door. That's just what it is. You go into a situation with Jesse Marsch and this talented Canadian side, and you're kind of a shoo-in, we can say, for the next 2 years minimum. There's some comfort to that, to go and play his style, to ease into things. I don't think it'll be an ease quickly because obviously this Copa America, there's going to be eyes on him, but I think he'll relish that. I think also too, when you hear him talking, saying that he loves the people here in Canada, that for me, what that represents is the chip on the shoulder that most players have, right? Like when I think of that, like the Tejan Buchanan's, guys that want to go and like prove that they're big players and they can show up in big moments. So I think that comfort kind of takes away that high risk, but and that will be my answer. But I'm just gonna, my brother over there, Ollie, I understand what he's saying in terms of there's still a little bit where you got to go and show. You can't go and tank now at Copa, tank at the World Cup, and then go to another job. I think with coaches, similar to players, when you're in the shop window, I'm certain that Jesse Marsch could have found something maybe going into the summer or fall and some type of a coaching opportunity, whether that's in Holland, whether that's Germany, like somewhere he could have played. But there's comfort in this job. And that's the thing. I think also with Canadians too, are we looking at Jesse Marsch saying that we need to go into the round of 16 for this World Cup? I don't hear anyone saying that. I don't think that's being tossed about. That's why I think it's a bit of a comfortable role. I don't think there's there's high risk with it.
Well, let's talk about that. Because I think when you do mention high risk, and you're right, like anytime you take a coaching job, there's always a risk because your reputation is on the line and you always want to do a good job. But at the same time, you're right. Canada Soccer hired Jesse Marsch. We always knew that they were going to hire the next coach for the men's national team and have him be the guy for 2026. MLS philanthropic contributions, they don't do that if you're not hiring a guy for 2026. So, I mean, not that we want this to happen, but if he has really bad results in those two friendlies, Copa America, we also know he ain't going anywhere, right? So there's a bit of a comfort there. But you also talked about expectations. And I know that Jordo Wheels, you guys were on One Nation and you weren't really maybe as forthcoming to say like, well, what are the expectations? What are the expectations against France, Netherlands, these friendlies going into Copa America? I mean, they are playing against two teams like Peru and Chile, who are at the bottom of the South American World Cup qualifying standings. I think between them, they have one win. So if you're looking at this, you're thinking, maybe these are wins, for Canada. So for Jesse Marsch to come on board, how are we measuring what success even looks like for him as a coach with this Canadian national team? And usually that measurement comes from the expectations. We're not in the room with Canada Soccer. We can't speak to their expectations. But Ollie, what are yours when it comes to this team and Jesse Marsch at the helm?
Yeah, well, I think from Canada Soccer's perspective, he could lose all 3 games at the Copa America. He's still going to be the coach.
Of course.
There's clearly a long-term commitment there to the 2026 World Cup. From my expectations, I think success is getting out of the group at the Copa America. It's very simple, I think, with this one. The World Cup, you could say first major tournament like that in a long time. Really difficult group, turned out to be an even more difficult group than we ever could have imagined. But this time, yeah, you're right. It's not a vintage Chile sides compared to previous years. Peru are a good team. They're all going to be difficult matches, but they had a World Cup layoff of 36 years, just like Canada before the 2018 World Cup. So those are games that Canada, I think, at this stage has to be going in wanting to compete, wanting to believe they can beat those types of opponents. And then if you can get through the group, then the real excitement starts, because in that quarterfinal, you're not going to face the United States. You're not going to face Brazil. You're not going to face Uruguay. You're not going to face Colombia. You're going to potentially have a quarterfinal game that you can get a little bit excited about. So I think that's the very clear line here is success, get out of the group. If you don't, then I think it's a little bit of a disappointment for Canada.
How you feeling, Wheels?
Just like on One Nation, I still don't know how to answer this question, because I think that the expectation from sports fans across this country, I'm not just including soccer fans, but sports fans, this has been a news story that's been spotted on front pages and is being become very prominent, the successor to John Herdman, a manager what the country got to know very well. But as soon as those losses started to add up, it wasn't about the process. It wasn't about the methodology. It wasn't about preaching positivity. That's something that Jesse Marsch, by the way, got in trouble for while at Leeds. I think we even talked about it on the show at the time, was preaching the process rather than results. You simply have to win if you want to stay relevant in this country. Or what is that lazy narrative that will be pushed? Oh, this is just typical Canadian soccer. Look at the CSA, blah, blah, blah. This is the reality of the situation. Yet from a structural perspective, I know that players, when they're working through the process of hiring Jesse Marsch, they're thinking, what do we need to take the next step? And they thought that someone of his experience, someone with credibility, someone with his tactical wherewithal was the right fit. For Canada Soccer, what they need right now is stability and wins. They need something from all of these categories here. But how is an association, I brought this up, which is still putting itself back together with people that work within the foundation of the Canadian Soccer Association, how many of those people have strong soccer acumen, have strong soccer backgrounds? How will they judge if Jesse Marsch goes the 2 warm-up matches, the 3 games in Copa America, then fall friendlies against the United States and Mexico? And what if you don't have a win over the course of those 7 games? How does the public react? How does the CSA react? How do the players react? I'm not quite sure, because this is a difficult stretch run of games, and expectations should matter. Expectations matter to like 95, or results matter to 95, 96, 97% of countries playing in world football right now. So are we going to judge him the same way, or are we going to judge it about other external factors? Again, I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, for someone who doesn't have the answer, we're not left speechless, Wheels. You always come through for
laying
us.
the foundation, the lay of the land.
Jordan, I don't know if you're willing to kind of set an expectation now, Jordan.
Look, it's difficult. I mean, I'm going to piggyback Wheels. We talked about it on Tuesday on One Nation, but what is it? Even when I ask people, I said, what are your expectations? I think the underlying remark I get back is seeing Canada play better. And I said, okay. For me, what's a moment when Canada played really well? The 22 shots with 3 on target against Belgium, and the whole world was ringing everyone's phone about Canada and how great it was. But respectfully, still lost that game. So I'm looking at things. I'm like, okay, that was a moment you kind of get behind Canada. You're like, yeah, we like this brand. We like these players. There's a trajectory here. But then there was still no win. So I guess in the world of football, if you're thinking Canada has to be better than that moment, then they have to go out and win. I think Chile, Peru, you have to go and beat them. Even if it's a high press, even if it's 3-2, getting wins in international football has to be the expectation. That has to be the next step. If not, then for me, it's like you're staying stagnant or you're going back the other way.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen that, right? We saw this incredible World Cup qualifying run. They finished first in the group as well in CONCACAF to qualify, make a Nations League final, but really there was no trophy there. There's no trophy or Gold Cup, right? So you kind of do this. And then we also know they didn't qualify for the Final Four Nations League this year. They had to play that game against Trinidad and Tobago to even qualify for Copa America. So people want to start seeing this again, right? The world of sports isn't linear. I get it. But you can only go down for so long before people are going to be like, okay, it's time to start going up. And typically when you get a new head coach, going up is where they want to see you go.
Can I just say quickly, it got a little better from Jordan at the ends there, but the next time one of you on the show says, I'm going to do an Oliver Platt and sit on the fence, I'm walking off.
I know.
I said it?
I agree with you. They sat on the fence, Ollie.
I said the fence today?
No one said it. I said the next time someone says it.
Yeah.
My expectations is wins. But I'll tell you what the Canadian Soccer Association is looking at right now. We got instant credibility. Like there's been nothing but instability over the last while across Canadian soccer. They got credibility, they got headlines, they got a lot of praise and positivity. My expectation is that carries over into results. But is that the way that he's going to be judged out of the gate? I don't know. I think that's a fair question.
Before we go, and maybe not all of you want to answer, maybe none of you want to answer, but it's now been 48 hours and we really can't say anything more until we see him in action, which we know the men will be on June 6th and June 9th. But are there, show of hands if anyone has a red flag maybe they want to discuss, or are we all good? We're all good.
Okay.
Maybe next
Motion
week.
passed. Motion passed. Let's move on.
I want to get positive on positive.
Let's
vibes.
feel positive
Let's
about
stay
this.
positive.